Welcome to Leadr Podcast, the ultimate destination for MedTech insights, leadership inspiration, and the latest innovation. I'm Steph Pliha, founder of Tribe Agency and your host for Leadr Podcast. Welcome back to Leadr Podcast, episode 19. Today I'm joined by my former colleague and actually former boss at Intuitive Surgical, Tim Matthews. Now a consultant at Spencer Stuart, Tim specializes in executive hiring and leadership strategy within the MedTech industry. This is going to be a cool episode, so let's get into it. OMG. I hope all of our teams are listening because today on episode 19, I have one of my old pals, old colleagues, old friends, all of the above, old leader, Tim Matthews is joining us today on Leadr Podcast. Welcome, Tim.
Doing Steph, great to be joining you. Great to see you again.
Well, Tim, I know we've been talking about this for years since I think I ran into you at LSI last year. And I've talked to you a couple times and we keep saying you need to be on the podcast and we were just trying to make it work. And today is that day.
Today's a big day. I've been looking forward to this. It's always good to catch up. Always hear about your success at Leadr, and Tribe. So great to be here.
Thank you. Same, right back at you. Well, so I always like to start off with how we know each other. I try to have guests that I don't know. If people are wondering if I only have people I know, that's not true. But I know a lot of really interesting people. So I'm not going to exclude them from the Leadr Podcast just because I know them. So Tim and I have a very long long-standing relationship that stemmed from Intuitive Surgical. So Tim was actually my direct manager for 3 years, 4 years.
Yeah, probably 4 years.
Yeah. We worked on the same management team at one point, and then he became my manager and we worked a long time together. And we're able to build something quite fun for any of our former Okla. Is that what we used to call our team? Okla? Was it Okla or something else? Or no, that was the one that combined Northern California and Southern California.
Socaloha.
It wouldn't have been Tribe approved. I can tell you that right now. But we did have an acronym for our team, and it was a very tight-knit leadership team, and it was so fun to be on. And so I definitely want to get into that just around the culture. But before we get started, I want to talk about your leadership journey. Obviously, we know each other from Intuitive, but you left Intuitive and started with a company called Spencer Stuart. So I want to know about that, what that journey looked like, what your leadership journey looks like, and then bring me to current day.
So my background, as with many commercial folks, starts out as an individual contributor in sales, right? Mm-hmm. And so long career, 25 plus years of sales and sales leadership experience, from the biopharma days right out of college to large capital equipment to the time that we spent together, 10 plus years at Intuitive Surgical. Was really a great experience for me as a salesperson and as a leader. I would tell you, I think one of the transitions in the leadership that is tough for a commercial person, frankly, in that is driving results in being that the primary way that you're measured, and having to drive a team in those relationships, right? And so I think early on in my career, frankly, in my leadership career, it was very much focused on the mechanics of where are we as a team, where are those numbers.
Yeah.
As that maturity in time and role, feedback, mentorship came to fruition, it was more, how do we empower others? How do you grow those capabilities? How do you build a culture of transparency and belief in each other to scale an organization? And I think that's a true essence of a transition from a mediocre leader to the great leaders that you and I have been exposed to.
Yeah. One thing I will comment on your leadership style is, we're not here today to talk about your leadership style, but a very favorable part of your leadership style is that you hire really strong people, and then you had plenty of strong personalities and really strong performers on your leadership bench, but you also get out of their way. I think Aaron and I kind of co-piloted team culture, right? We were really driving not just the numbers, not just the operations. Like you said, you had to be at the helm of all of that. But, A players want to be around other A players. And then also they want to love what they do. And so I felt like there was a really solid balance with you on, getting things done and the operations that you were hired to manage and make sure that we hit our number. But I also feel like there was a general balance of enjoying each other's company, making sure that we felt really tight as a team and that we were on a high performance team and that we led and managed our people in the same fashion. So I feel like you're one of these leaders where you got out in the field, you rolled up your sleeves, like there was never something too cool or too low for you to manage. It was you were all in the trenches, and we really appreciated that about you.
Well, thanks, Steph. I appreciate that. I think that was gravitating back towards my individual contributor days of rolling up
Mhm.
the sleeves. You never wanted a manager, a leader, a boss to be somebody who would tell you something that they want to have done, but not do it themselves, right?
Right.
I
Yes.
recently just had a conversation earlier today with a leader, and it was just this. What is this organization looking for? It is someone to roll up their sleeves. We don't need ivory tower folks that are sitting in their office all day. We need to lead by example.
Yes.
I tried to do that. I believed very much in the scaling of the team. Again, I thought the empowering the team and giving trust out to the team allowed for longevity of those relationships, and the performance, right, should follow. And I do believe in that very much still to this day, and it has
Mhm.
allowed me to, I think, transition that career into this career.
Yeah. So talk to me about the transition from Intuitive to Spencer Stuart. What are you doing there? What's your role? Who do you work with?
So Spencer Stuart, for those that don't know, is a leadership advisory firm. So we do leadership advisory, search, board advisement, coaching, and consulting. And it is one of the largest search and advisory firms in the world. If you boil it down to the healthcare practice, which I am part of, we have roughly 60 consultants globally. So we're a global firm, and over 30 of those are here in the U.S. And so, the initial question was, how did I end up here?
Yeah.
It was opportunistic on their side. Most people that end up in executive search, advisory, working with boards and C-suites don't end up here as a distinct career choice. It is many of the people I work with are, there's former surgeons and doctors, there's former P&L holders and CEOs that come from all walks in industry. And I ended up here because they had reached out to me as a candidate for an actual role for an
Mhm.
earlier stage scaling organization. After multiple conversations, that role was not right for me, and the conversation shifted to, if you like building culture, if you like giving feedback to teams, and that matters to what you do and how you impact patients down the road, there's a way you can scale your influence further than quote unquote just one product or just one company.
Mhm.
And I was intrigued by that initially as a an alternative career path, and having scalable opportunities. But the interactions with the multitude of leaders and the backgrounds that they had, I said, at the very least, I'm going to learn a ton from these people. And it's been a relatively seamless transition. There's always points of uncomfortability as you learn a new career and take on new responsibilities. But that is what I'm currently doing, is advising executive teams on search matters, normally on the commercial, president, GM, CEO, and board levels.
And you're specifically working within the medical space, correct?
So yeah, thank you. So
Mhm.
while I'm part of the healthcare practice, I'm core MedTech is my home. After, like I said, a decade with Intuitive, and before that, capital equipment. Acute care, hospital based is my primary, but we also do an awful lot in my personal practice in diagnostics. Digital health and wearables is also very hot.
Got it. So I didn't really realize until just now we have a lot of parallels in how we're approaching this particular position. Much like yourself, I'm a consultant and I love having my hands in a lot of pots. It's like feeding my undiagnosed ADD. I like to be involved with multiple solutions and not be tied to just one. Early days of Tribe, my clients tried to hire me, and I'm like, no, 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 I'm not for hire. I
Yes.
don't want to be for hire. I don't want to be for hire. I want to be involved in multiple opportunities, and it's actually super fun. And I'm sure we're both building a ton of neurons in our brain by constantly firing in different lanes and not just learning one thing. I mean, you and I both were lifers at Intuitive. So we learned a ton there, but we really only learned about Intuitive, and being able to pull back at this stage of our career and be involved with multiple companies and multiple companies' needs just keeps us sharper. And it just also speaks to my need to be creative and be involved and have more than just one thing that's on my task list. So I love that. Tell me, because we were talking about it in our pre call, there's a lot of executive search companies out there. What makes Spencer Stuart unique? Like, what's your secret sauce, if you're allowed to tell that?
I'll share as much as I can. I would tell you there's a number of things. I already touched on one of these, and
Mhm.
the fact that we're a global firm, right? And so a global firm gives you reach to the most diversified slate of candidates, right? But based on background, race, underrepresented classes, it gives you the touch and reach in every corner of this world, and I think that's a true value. The fact that we have many local offices also allows us to operate as a boutique, really rolling out
Mhm.
the red carpet for each client, able to adapt versus using a one size fits all application. And we have many, like I already mentioned as well, many leaders who come from the industries we work in. So it gives us, I think, a depth and understanding um, uh, the industry at a deeper level. Okay, and so I think that allows the conversations that we have with our candidates to flow very naturally. If you look at the work we do one of the highest amounts of board searches in the world. So in the past year, we've done over 700 executive board placements. The vast majority of those are either current CEOs, former CEOs, or CFOs are a big request
Mhm.
these days for the financial challenges that are out there. What does that do if you call me for a president role? These CEOs, current and former CEOs, know who built these companies. They know
Right.
the next person up, who's the talent that's buried behind somebody else. And those are the conversations that we have on a daily basis that will allow us to bring insight into these conversations and boardrooms that I think others don't have the same level of access as. And it's similar to, we tied the early conversation here back to Intuitive. Intuitive has access at different levels of hospital networks
Mhm.
based on the value and the programmatic structure that Intuitive brings. I would say it's a parallel world here. The value that we bring at the executive level, the insights that we bring, is what sets us apart.
Okay. So break this down for me. If I'm a MedTech innovator and I am searching currently for a president or a CMO,
Mhm.
do I reach out to Spencer Stewart? What do I do?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think you reach out to the person, the consultant partner who
Mhm.
is most closely aligned to your product vertical, right? And so you can very easily go on our website, as you can most large companies, and figure out, let's say, who is a leader in the med tech space, in the
Okay.
diagnostic space,
Mhm.
or financial officer, whatever it may be. That'd be a direct email or a call to me or one of my colleagues.
Mhm.
You asked, what do we do differently? I think one of the things we also do differently is we work more collaboratively than a lot of our competitors. What that means is if you call me and I'm not the best resource to be leading that search, I pull in my partners. As an example, we had a call recently from a large strategic who needed a new supply chain and manufacturing leader, senior vice president level, large multinational. I had a conversation intake call with the president of the business and the chairman of that business. We then pulled in a specialist from our supply chain and manufacturing practice. That's handed off to the best team, as we call it here at Spencer Stuart. And that ensures we have a level of consistency in every search, even if it's not in my or another consultant's expertise.
I love that. So you're definitely taking more of a boutique consulting approach, much like Tribe, and making sure that you're not just doing a cut and paste sourcing or taking someone off your bench and just trying to apply it to any need out there, but you're really doing a hand-picked search per need, per client that's based specifically on what their needs are.
That is 100% accurate. And so
Okay.
you kind of go through the process, and I'm not going to go to too much detail with
Mhm.
you here. But so you call in, you say, "Hey, I need a new president."
Right.
Example of a med tech company. It starts off as what we call an intake call. So it's
Mhm.
myself and several of my colleagues on the call asking questions to you, the CEO,
Mhm.
who's describing your culture. What's the gaps? What are the gaps in the current business? What are the must-haves? What are the prior experience levers that need to be pulled? Those are all things that we can do pretty easily, right? So prior experience examples would be full P&L experience. Many salespeople think they had a full P&L. We had budgets. We didn't have a full P&L. We weren't working with finance and HR as
Mhm.
part of our overall op
Or
sheet.
EBITDA. Yeah.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Is exactly right. So you go through prior experience. That's an intake call. You're having these
Mhm.
discussions, and then you work on the top capabilities that they need to take over that role. Like maybe it's driving results. Let's say it's a commercially focused role.
Mhm.
Driving results in the bottom line is a key capability. Building talent. You have a thin bench, a thin team. Who can recruit top talent? It's not afraid to include top talent, leading people, etc. Those are all capabilities. Those are things that you need to have conversations with people, right? The past experience, anybody can look at a resume or LinkedIn. The capabilities are really conversations on how you as a leader drove the results. And then we have a cultural assessment written up in the Harvard Business Review. It goes through 8 different capabilities, and we try to align culture with the impact of the capabilities and prior experience. For example, there, if your top two, let's say, are order and safety as your top two attributes from the cultural assessment, VC or PE may not be where you want to be because there's more risk involved there, right? And so we try to take all of those insights and deliver an outline, an overview to our clients on the best candidates for the gaps and roles they're trying to fill.
Got it. I think board placements are hard. I really do. I think it does require someone to really understand what the company needs, what's their culture, what's missing, what are the gaps. Meaning, when you're deliberating in a board, do you have a balanced profile of people with balanced experience and different subject matter experts on the board? Right?
That is, I completely agree with that, Steph. I would
Yeah.
tell you, um, board. Everybody wants to be on a board. I don't think most people understand the commitment that it takes to drive a commercially available board. Meaning,
Mhm.
PE if it's VC backed, if it's a public board, it's a different level, right? And so the depth of expertise they're looking for many times is very pronounced.
Mhm.
In years past, they've been looking to diversify skill sets. I will tell you in 2024, we do a board index every year. It shifted very much back towards CEO centric because you get expertise in a multitude of issues, right? In
Right.
areas, excuse me. And so instead of having just the marketer or just the supply chain person, you end up getting a more of a diversified background. So that pendulum has swung back very heavily towards CEO level. Number two is CFO, and then it does look at functional leaders, marketing specifically, manufacturing specifically. But about a third of public board directors over the last year were first-time board directors. So they are looking for people who have fresh perspective and current perspectives to add to the company. You have to be
Yeah.
additive. You're not just there as a
Just to take
figurehead.
up space.
That's
Yeah,
exactly right.
and add your voice to a already noisy and type A personality group of people. Well, when you say that you're largely working with the PE and the VC environment, I had a client of mine maybe a couple months ago. She's a new founder and new business owner. And she asked me, and I didn't really have the answer. I might have even checked in with you on this one. She wanted to know how quickly is appropriate to bring on a co founder. That was question one. And second was how soon a startup should have a board. And honestly, that's completely outside of my strategic consulting lane. But
Yeah.
what are your thoughts just off the top of your head?
So just to be completely transparent, while we do some VC work, the majority of what we do is PE and
Okay.
growth stage and strategic level public companies. We do interact with a fair amount of VCs as well. I can answer specifically around a board. Um, I do believe if you're taking outside money, most specifically, that an independent or a board of investors is very well founded. So I would say almost immediately as you start taking in outside money, be it seed money or from VCs, family offices, and otherwise, there should be a board, and that board should still offer a balanced assessment of
Mhm.
what is needed in the market.
Right.
What we normally see in those early stage companies is if you take money from a firm, they will normally require a board seat. So early stage seed money
Mhm.
organizations are most commonly made up of board members from the investors.
Yeah.
As companies grow and they become let's say more scaled and they start moving into PE and potentially public, you see a transition from just investors to other leaders from different parts of the business for more diversity of mind share, and more expertise based on the stage of the company. If
Right.
you're learning how to commercialize and scale, somebody who has a commercial background and maybe
Mhm.
supply chain for scalability, maybe two board seats they want to fill.
Right. Any other topics or thoughts on Spencer Stuart? Otherwise, I want to move on to culture and also our an upcoming meeting that you and I are both going to.
As far as Spencer Stuart goes, I do want to mention, we're talking a lot about search, where I work,
Mhm.
president, CEO, but I mentioned leadership advisory as well. And so we have a whole group of consultants here, partners who work as coaches to CEOs. Leadership assessment is a big part of what we do as well. And so I would say over 90% of our C-suite placements now go through what's called a leadership assessment. And I would say it's an enhanced version of the cultural tool I alluded to earlier, which
Yeah.
is a quick questionnaire for any of the candidates. Our clients many times will partner with us to do additional deep dive assessments. It's a 4 hour assessment. It's making sure you really understand the executive you're going to bring in. It includes many times business case scenarios where you
Mhm.
give feedback on how you would handle different situations, and boards look to that more and more. We're not the only firm that does that, but it's a key part to being a leadership advisory firm and not just a search group. And that resource is something that I rely on heavily because these are the people going and doing the deep dives with the CEOs and board members, and they gain tremendous insight, which has been really very helpful.
So, just for my own clarity, so that advisory board that you have within your company, is
Mhm.
it there to serve and kind of prep and groom CEOs and founders of companies so that they are ready for the hires that you all place and that they have the capacity to lead from the front, but not get into the weeds on different jobs that have been placed, like letting people have the leverage to do their job? Or what
So
is the goal of that
So,
advisory?
so, so a couple things. So in the context that I just mentioned it is
Mhm.
literally an assessment normally for the final two or three candidates
I
where
see. Okay.
where our clients get full like reports on candidates and they get rated as, C-suite, CEO, and it's more insight on them and their leadership style and
Mhm.
making sure they either are continuing on the culture that they're trying to pull through or are they a change agent if that's what the organization needs? So that is where it's most commonly used within our context. But
Mm.
we also offer executive coaching services. And so we do a lot of succession planning. So CEOs call us and
Mhm.
say, I want to retire in 5 years. We need assessments of the C-suite team, both internally and externally. That is assessments and coaching for development. So something that what we did previously is we've always coached our people. Executives need coaching as well. And so we offer coaching services, which is probably more aligned with what you just asked is helping people develop if there's gaps so they're ready to take on that next level role when the time comes.
Right. Wow, you guys are a full suite service. I had no
Absolutely.
idea. Now I know.
There you go.
So it's spencerstuart.com. Is that right?
It is. SpencerStuart.com.
I'll make sure I put that in the notes as well. Okay,
Thank you.
so let's talk about something that is near and dear to my heart. I love it. I love to foster it. I love to be in good ones, and that is culture. I think the reason why we want to bring this up today is because you and I have had our fair share of culture both together and even within other teams. And so I guess I'll start the conversation by saying I think, quite honestly, if you're a leader and you have people on your team and you're not fostering a culture, not the right culture, but a culture, you're already losing, right? So it seems like almost like a soft skill or a woo woo type thing to discuss. But in real life, as a team member, and I've been on multiple teams, if you don't feel connected to something greater than yourself, and you just feel like an individual contributor, even though you're technically on a much bigger leadership team with all of us sharing the same boss, um, you're going to miss making that opportunity to connect your team and build like a superpower in your team. Because I do feel an empowered team is much stronger together. Could be like a bumper sticker, but then apart, and I have seen leaders who just discount. I've actually been on a team where the leader discounted any need for culture. We don't need group text threads. We don't use emojis. Like a lot of the soft skills that are just personalizing the team, right? They're just making people feel like they're part of a team.
Yep.
And some people are all in on that, myself being one, and even everyone I've worked for in the past. I think I drive myself towards leadership and leaders that are similar in nature, that they honor and reward and inspire their team to get to know each other and also foster. It's everyone's job on a team to foster a culture. And then, I spent a lot of time with my former management teams on talking about what do we want to be best known for? What do we want to stand for? What are the things that we care about? I don't know if you are a part of this exercise that I've done with former teams, but the Who Am I exercise. Do you remember
Yeah.
me
Yeah,
telling you about that?
absolutely. For sure.
So it's, I'm not going to get into the full detail, but it was a big way to build culture. At some point, I'm going to write a book about it and replicate it for everyone else to use on their teams. There's people that have worked with me at both Intuitive and former companies that I also use that same exercise that say it was a big part of their pivot in their career. And the essence is if you're not seen by your peers authentically how you see yourself, if there's a disconnect, because I have them fill out a Who Am I exercise. They say everything about what they believe in, not just what they do for a living, but really more about what they stand for moralistically and just, their overall theory of life. It's very kind of philosophical, slightly out of bounds with work, but we usually try to make it pretty casual and like an offsite.
Yep.
And then we have all of the colleagues in the room blindly assess those individuals on what they think they stand for and what they believe they are and who they believe they are.
Hmm.
And then we create these little Wordle charts, to bring it all back together with what their Wordle chart said about themselves, meaning the words they repeated more often. And then the same, we put all the adjectives from the colleague feedback blindly and compare the Wordle charts. And I truly believe some of the best leaders in the world are the authentic leaders, where they're not a different person on stage as they are in a team or at home. And I do think there's boundaries. Obviously, you don't disclose everything personally, but I think holding yourself to the same standard, both at work and at home, is authentic. And so that's this whole authentic leadership workshop that we do. And that was not only a big way to build culture, but it's also a great way to build trust, get people to drop walls. I learned so much about people, having them be a little bit more vulnerable and expose kind of the greater purpose that they are fighting for on a daily basis. So that was one thing that I was almost an absolute on my team. If you're on my team, I'm sure you know, and you've been through it multiple times. It's painful at first, but then it always ends at the end. I feel like it really creates this immediate connection. Did we actually do it on your team, or did we
We
talk about
did,
it?
we
Did
did,
we?
and I'll agree with you again here. I think authentic leadership is what we look for every day, frankly, and you don't want somebody to pretend they're being somebody they're not, right? It's really hard to keep up a facade day in day out when you're leading a multinational organization, for example, right? And so it's exhausting. And so you're looking for people who are genuine. And not all organizations are looking for the same personality type. That's a good thing, right? It creates diversity of cultures in organizations and what's important, what are the KPIs. So I think authentic leaders are basically all we're looking for. And what I think is it's the trust we talked about earlier that makes a huge difference, right? And for example, you just mentioned the text threads. I was all for the text threads. I can't say I was the leading emoji user, right? And so, but you
I
and some
was
of
the
your team
chief
member,
emoji
yeah,
officer.
yes,
I was the chief
yes.
emoji
So
officer. I'll take that. I'll take it.
yeah, so that is okay, right? Like I didn't say don't use emojis. It just wasn't my, I am who I am, and so you try
Yeah.
to incorporate what makes other people feel that common thread together. Cultures, the shared assumptions of thinking and KPIs and behaviors and the unwritten rules of organizations.
Mhm.
That's what you're trying to understand. You try who aligns with those quote unquote assumptions of the business, right? And it allows for a stronger team to be built
Mhm.
that creates a real foundation for these organizations, whether it's VC or PE or multinational. Everyone's trying to build on a foundation to allow for scalability. And the culture you set, if it's authentic, and it's pulled through, allows for a longer, hopefully reproducible effect, right? And so you can have long-term success with the people you bring in. That's
Yeah.
what culture and alignment and teams mean in what we
Yeah.
do. So what did Peter Drucker say? Culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So every company has a strategic plan, but why are some more impactful in the market than others? Sometimes many times it's product market fit.
Mhm.
Some products have more impact financially, clinically, whatever it may be, than others. But a lot of times it's cultural alignment and execution, and everyone rowing the boat in the same direction. You just called out the memories of the COVID times, which were hard for a lot of people,
So hard.
especially leaders, as you try to connect a team over Zoom. And you talked about this earlier, where you roll up your sleeves and you get in the field, and that
Mhm.
allowed you to connect with your team. I always try to do the same thing,
Mhm.
sometimes better than others, but it was always a work in progress of trying to be there with your team to find those moments. I would tell you in work that I do and that you do many times
Mhm.
is now over Zoom, right? A lot of
A
these
lot of
meetings are
remote.
over Zoom.
Yep.
It's a lot of remote, and I try to constantly remind myself that I do my best work live, and most people do their best work live, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's hard to get someone's personality over a
Mhm.
Zoom and really understand them. Do you have time to ask about their kids or what they do on the weekend? No, it's straight to business when you get on a Zoom. And so I always encourage people to make time to get on the road. You don't have to do it as much as you used to, maybe as a sales leader or marketing leader or whatnot. But even for my role here, much of my time is behind a computer screen. I'm trying to find balance where I'm actually on the road more. 2 weeks ago, I was in Florida, meeting with many clients, and it is always great to find that connection at a deeper level, walking through the factory floor or meeting for breakfast or a drink after work. Those are moments you can't imitate,
Yeah.
and it takes the time and investment. So no matter what role you're in, I always think those personal interactions have an outweighed impact.
Completely agree. I think we're all people persons at heart, and I do think we all rely on connection. And taking that and isolating everyone on their own little silos is not productive for happiness. And I know this is a fairly contentious topic in the news right now, but like I'm all for return to work. Prior to 2020, no one had the option. If you had a corporate job, you were in the office. Like that was your job. And part of your job is being in the beast that in which you work so that you
Mhm.
see what's going on around you and you're not so disconnected or so on an island that you have no empathy. Like maybe they're like overhauling the entire marketing department like construction, and you're not getting marketing stuff in a timely manner. And if you're not there seeing that going down physically, you're totally disconnected to the company. So, I mean, I'm sure I'll get haters for that, but that's okay. I mean, I believe that people want to be connected. They want to be around people. And yeah, I mean, there are times where remote works, but I think for the most part, trying to make any kind of sales team perform or any kind of connection as a leader, I do think you need to spend time with them one on one.
So that is a very timely. It is a timely discussion. It's in the news, obviously.
Yep.
It is something that we discuss literally daily with our clients, and for most C-suite roles, they want you in the office, right? And so we're seeing that pendulum swing back to
Mm,
I only want people who are going to fully relocate. And it is harder to place people now because of
I
that.
bet.
Many
Yeah.
people in again, I'll pick up sales because it's close to home for
Mhm.
both of us, but many sales leaders have moved multiple times to move up through the ranks and get
Mhm.
promotions from rep to manage their first manager job to the first director job, the first VP. So what many sales leaders say is, I live on the road basically. Well, I'm going to relocate my family and still
That's
spend
true.
time on the road.
That's
And
true.
so you need to find that balance. And so I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way to do this. Many are still trying to do hybrid, but
Mhm.
it's I align with the clients many times who say we need to make sure we pull through this culture, right?
Yeah.
We need to make sure that the culture we have that has driven us to this success is maintained. And if everyone's remote, how do you do that? And I agree
Yeah.
with that. So
Yeah.
if everyone's remote and everyone's a free agent, as soon as somebody offers you one more dollar, why
Yeah.
wouldn't you leave? Many
Yeah.
times it's the culture and people you work with that are the driving force of why you stay with an organization because no organization is perfect every day, day in,
No.
day out. There's challenges, right? And so, again, the more remote you are, the harder it is many times to see that. So it's an active discussion. We see a lot of these roles now that are hybrid. So they do, apartments, every other week in the office.
Yeah.
We're trying to work with our clients that way. But you mentioned something about if you don't understand the marketing departments being construction and things are delayed, the things that we're looking for in leaders is in a complex world. I mentioned tariffs earlier
Mhm.
or China developing new molecules or MedTech products faster than others with use of AI. You need big systems thinking. And what systems thinking is not just being solely in your vertical of sales leadership,
Right.
that you understand what's going on in R&D, that you
Mhm.
understand what's going on in marketing and how your world within the organization is all interconnected. And the
Right.
people who can draw the parallels and understand how this is all connected are the ones that are going to drive the change in the organizations and frankly the leadership roles as they become available.
Completely agree. I think even if you're in a situation where let's just say all the leaders are remote, it's on you to develop those relationships.
That's right.
Do a coffee Zoom, where it's solely just to ask questions about them and their background and, how do they want to work together and what are their primary KPIs for the year and how can we work together to help you get mine and you get yours and I get mine. Like, I think that's important. People need to own that. And just like they own their own development, they need to own their own culture. If it's lacking or if it's not aligned with where you want to be, then it's on you to develop it. So, to put a bow on this culture conversation, because I know we're kind of running out of time here, I would just say if you don't know your culture of your business, big or small, do an audit. If you want to be real, do a 360 on your people and ask them, not in any punitive way, but just ask them their thoughts. How would you define our culture? And also, what is the ideal culture in which you want to live in and work in? And when you look back on your career, what was your most favorite memory of a company that you worked for and their culture and why? It's easy to ask questions and do audits and get more information. Don't live in a bubble. Make sure you're always on top of it. And then I personally subscribe to servant leadership principles. I love the book from Ken Blanchard. It's a big one. And so I just think everyone can get better at leadership. They just have to be willing to learn, right? And ask questions. Okay. Well, so Tim and I are going to LSI next week and it's coming up. It's on what, Monday? Monday?
They come in like maybe Monday evening, but I have
Like
it Tuesday through
registration.
Thursday. Yeah,
Yeah.
Tuesday through Thursday.
So I think everyone that's listening to this has probably got some awareness about LSI, but it's basically MedTech conference that's really geared towards investment and fundraising. There's a bunch of investors, there's VC firms, there's strategics there. Your company's looking to get acquired or create an exit strategy. There's that. There's also a ton of professional services people like myself and Tim. We're all going to be there too. There's a massive ecosystem around the med tech industry. And I'm excited. This will be my second year going. There's a potential I may be actually speaking there. But either way, I'm looking forward to whoever might be listening and is attending. Definitely come find me, come find Tim. We would love to talk to you more about the things we discussed today and also what our individual companies bring to the table. All right, Tim, we have
Yes.
3 questions. We have 3 questions that we ask every guest speaker, and you
Okay.
don't get to get away without answering them.
Let's do it.
So it's a speed round line of questioning. So I'll just tell you the 3 questions up front. You can pick wherever you want to start. So a business book that's made an impact on your career or your decision making, that would be question 1. Question 2 is a mentor that's made an impact on your career and why and who. And then 3, what is a superpower that you hold dear to yourself that you feel like God gave you or whoever gives you your superpower that you want to speak to, and we'll end with that.
Okay. There's 3 hard-hitting questions, Steph. So first up on book, I'm gonna go old school and go Good to Great.
Yep.
It's one that we discussed at many meetings with
Yes.
Intuitive. I read it when I was there. I think understanding how organizations so many times are okay in situation and how you scale up and create excellence is something that every organization strives for. So that would be the book of note. Not original, but
No, I
impactful. How
love
about
that
that?
one. There's so many fundamentals in there. That's the book that also talks about incubator versus being full commercialization, right? Or am
Yes,
I
correct.
blending
Yeah,
books? Okay.
yeah. All right.
Okay.
Number 2, mentor. Mentor. I'm gonna go actually with somebody we discussed before we got on this call, and that's Adam Clark. So shout out to Adam Clark, who's down in Australia now. So Adam was my direct boss for many years, and even before he was my direct boss at Intuitive, he was a mentor to me. And I'll tell you the one thing that Adam did. One of the things he did really well and taught me, and that is the ability to relate and use empathy to build the culture you're looking for. I think he was able to change a regional culture that had for many years suffered. And I saw that take effect across the Western US. And so that impact on how to relate to people more deeply was something that helped me then and still makes an impact now. So that would be mentor. And number 3 was
Superpower.
superpower.
Everyone has one. I know some of yours. So if you don't come up with one, I'm going to fill one in.
How can you give me one first? I don't know.
No.
Superpower. How about I'll just tell you, my ability to work in uncomfortable or challenging situations. I will keep my head down and grind through, I think, in challenges in uncomfortability, well above and beyond most others' pain threshold, whether I should or shouldn't. And that has led to, I think, successes and a lot of learnings throughout my career.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. This kind of back to my earlier compliment on your emotional intelligence. I think you have a solid footing in emotional intelligence, and you probably rely heavily on that when you're in a difficult situation and just realize that nothing's personal in business, right? And just disconnect between the stimulus that's coming your way and your response. So I think that is definitely a superpower. The one that was coming to mind for me is operations. I think you're one of the best from an operations perspective. You have a way of organizing everything in a very easy to read or easy to follow path. And you kind of take things in buckets and compartmentalize everything. And so everything felt in order. Like there's nothing worse than working for a leader who's in total disarray and chaos at all times.
It's funny you say that. One of the things I've told to some of the leaders I used to work with, I've told my kids this as well. I said, I don't need all the color. I
Yeah,
think of the world in bullet points. I do, for better, for worse. So that's the
that is
organization.
fact.
And so when I get lots and lots of color, I don't know what to do with it. So I do try to boil it down to the impactful points, and for better or for worse, it works
Yeah.
sometimes. And other times you need the color and background
I
detail.
feel like I might have been on the receiving end of a couple of different times where you're like, "I don't need the color stuff.
Yeah,
What is it that
maybe
you need today?"
efficiency. We're gonna roll lots to get through. That's right.
But I love the color. The color's important.
Many
Uh,
people like the color. That is true. It's context, as we call it. Context is important in many situations.
yeah,
Other times, you just need to know where you are in a business process, and that's all that really matters, right?
I
And so you got to
completely
pick and
agree.
choose your moments.
Yes, and that is why it's your superpower, and that is why it's necessary. Because if you had a bunch of colorful people all the time and no one breaking it down and distilling it into action, no one would get
That's right.
anything done.
That's right.
So
That is right. I would agree with you there.
all right. Well, it has been a pleasure to have you. For first of all, just to catch up. Hopefully, we catch
Yeah.
up next week too. I want to introduce you to actually one of my very first boss out of college is going to be at this event next week. Who I think you've heard me talk about for years, Rhonda. She's
Yeah.
my
Absolutely.
mentor, so she'll be there. I told her, I convinced her to come to LSI, so we'll be there together. But truly a pleasure to talk to you and get a chance to reflect on our years at Intuitive and working together on the same team. Really appreciated everything that you did for me in my career, and also super appreciative for you to be on Leader Podcast today.
Steph, it was awesome to reconnect. I enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to seeing you at LSI next week.
Sounds good.